Hi, friends. I recently finished the book Everybody Always by Bob Goff. He's a great storyteller, but this story is one that touched my heart the most, maybe because we've been focusing in worship on grief and hope. He writes, "We're not supposed to love only our neighbors, but Jesus thought we should start with them. I bet he knew if our love isn't going to work for people who live close to us, then it's probably not going to work for the rest of the world." Jesus didn't say who our neighbors are either, probably so we wouldn't start making a list of those we don't need to love. Each of us is surrounded every day by our neighbors. They're ahead of us, behind us, on each side of us. They're every place we go, and they're everywhere we look. It's one thing we all have in common. We are all somebody's neighbor, and they are ours. This has been God's simple yet brilliant plan from the beginning. He made a whole world of neighbors. We call it Earth, but God calls it just a really big neighborhood. What often keeps us from loving our neighbors is fear of what will happen if we do. Frankly, what scares me more is thinking about what will happen if we don't. For the last 22 years, we've put on a New Year's Day parade to celebrate our neighbors. Our parade starts at the cul-de-sac at the end of our block and ends in our front yard. Our whole family wakes up every year and blow up over 1,000 helium balloons. We're the reason of the helium shortage. Before we start taking the balloons out of the house, we give thanks for our neighbors and the privilege of doing life with them. Our block only has 20 houses if you count both sides, so our parade isn't a long one. Our first year, there were only 8 of us standing at the beginning of the parade route. We stood together at the end of the cul-de-sac, trying to look like a parade. Someone said go, and we started walking down the street, waving to the 6 neighbors who were watching. Now there are probably 400 or 500 people who come every year. Kids pull wagons full of stuffed animals and pet goldfish. There are no fancy floats. Bicycles with baseball cards in the spokes are the norm. By the time we all line up for the parade these days, we're already at our house and sometimes a little past it before anyone starts moving. Here's why we do it. We can't love people we don't know. You can't either. Saying we love our neighbors is simple, but guess what? Doing it is too. Just throw them a parade. We don't think Jesus' command to love your neighbor is a metaphor for something else. We think it means you're supposed to actually love your neighbor, engage them, delight in them, throw a party for them. When joy is a habit, love is a reflex. We don't have a plan for the parade. This cuts down on the preparation time. It's just as well. Love doesn't obey all the rules we try to give it anyway. A week before the parade each year, we knock on a few of our neighbors' front doors and pick a grand marshal and a queen from among them. Being picked as the queen is a big deal in our neighborhood. Carol got the nod one year. A decade later, people still bowed to Carol when they saw her at the corner market or the gas station and called her Your Majesty. It was just beautiful. Carol was diagnosed with cancer. On New Year's Day, Carol was clinging to life by a few threads and was far too weak to get out of bed. She'd made it to the day of the parade that she had once presided over as queen. This was an ambition, I think, that had sustained her during her last months of her courageous battle. Just before the parade started, my sons Richard and Adam, along with Lindsay's husband John, went across the street and carried Carol from her bedroom to a chair that they had placed in front of her living room window facing the street. Carol could hear the music and knew that the parade was coming soon, but she couldn't see past the corner of her window. What she didn't know was that we had changed the parade route, and within a few minutes, all 500 people walked right through her front yard. I sat next to Carol, holding her hand as hundreds of her friends and neighbors walked up to her window, pressed their noses against it, waved to her, and bounced balloons. As they did, through her tears, Carol lifted her weak hand slowly to her mouth and blew kisses at each one of them. A few days later, Jesus lifted Carol up to heaven. It would be her second parade of the week. I don't know if the streets of heaven are paved in gold, but I'm kind of hoping they're lined with balloons. And at the end of the parade, I bet we'll find Jesus blowing us kisses and welcoming us to our next neighborhood. Thanks for listening. I'll see you again next week.